It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. We begin with President Bola Tinubu, who is expected to travel to Rome on Saturday to attend the inauguration of Pope Leo XIV. The presidency says the invitation was extended by the Vatican through Cardinal Pietro Parolin, urging the president's presence at what was described as a moment of importance for the Catholic Church and a world facing conflict. Presidential advisor Bayo Onanuga says the new pope expressed personal affection for Nigeria, recalling his time at the Apostolic Nuncio in Lagos in the 1980s. President Tinubu will attend Sunday's Mass at St. Peter's Square, where Pope Leo XIV will be formally installed as the 267th Bishop of Rome. He'll be accompanied by top Catholic leaders in Nigeria, including the president of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria and Archbishop of Owerri, Lucius Ugoji, the Archbishop of Abuja, Ignatius Kaigama, the Archbishop of Lagos, Alfred Adewale Martins, and the Bishop of Sokoto Diocese, Matthew Hassan Kuka. The president is expected back in Abuja on Tuesday, May the 20th. And now to the economy, as Nigeria's inflation rate has declined slightly by 0.52% to 23.71% in April from the 24.23% recorded in March. This is according to the latest Consumer Price Index report released by the National Bureau of Statistics. According to the NBS, food and non-alcoholic beverages contributed the most to headline inflation, with 9.49%, followed by restaurants and accommodation services at 3.06% and transport at 2.53%. On a month-on-month basis, inflation stood at 1.86%, showing a sharp drop from the 3.9% recorded the previous month. Meanwhile, food inflation, a key concern for most Nigerian households, was reported at 21.26% year-on-year and 2.06% month-on-month, down slightly from March's 2.18%. Now, this moderation, according to the NBS, was driven by falling prices in essential staples such as maize flour, yam flour, rice, and beans. Now, the hierarchy of the Nigerian Air Force, NAF, on Tuesday stated that President Bola Tinubu will induct the newly acquired Augusta 109S Trekker helicopters into the Order of Battle of the NAF at the 011 Presidential Air Fleet Wing of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, today. The Nigerian Air Force revealed that the president will also be inaugurating quick impact projects across the NAF operational theaters, one of which is a clinic that has been constructed in Rukubi community in Doma local government area of Nasarawa State, where some civilians lost their lives in January 2023 due to an unfortunate airstrike. Speaking during a press conference at the NAF headquarters in Abuja to officially kickstart the anniversary celebration, the chairman of the organizing committee for the Nigerian Air Force's 61st anniversary celebration, Air Commodore Sylvester Asukuo Eyoma, also revealed that NAF will be expecting over 30 air forces, 12 chiefs of air staff and 45 exhibitors, including major defense and aerospace players like Airbus, Embraer, Diamond Aircraft, Havelson, Jet Aviation, Starlight Aviation Group, Proforce, and the Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria, who are billed to participate in the 4th African Air Forces Forum, scheduled to hold in Lagos as part of activities to celebrate the NAF at 61. Well, congratulations to the Nigerian Air Force at 61. And the president is also off to Rome.
He is. So I know we have a leaner show, so I think I'll just keep my comments to the president going to Rome. And I think it is a wonderful thing. I think it's a beautiful example to see the president of Nigeria being invited at the request, obviously through Pietro Parolin, but at the request of the new pope to attend his inaugural mass, his formal installation this Sunday, the 18th. And I think it is a wonderful thing. You know, before we came on air, Rufai and I, and yourself, we were all discussing how perhaps definitely in the south of the country, in the lines of the country that we are from, it does seem as though religion flows very seamlessly into each other. So I know that that's not always as reflective of the state of affairs across Nigeria, but this is just a good example of that. Sticking on the issue of the president going to Rome for the installation mass, he will also be traveling with, as you mentioned, key bishops from Nigeria and also a delegation of staff. what they will also be traveling to Rome with is the news that when we're looking at President Tinubu's appointees, 62% of them are Christians. Now, that is significant because if we cast our minds back to the election of 2023, being that the now ruling party, the then ruling party's presidential ticket had a Muslim as its president candidate and as its vice president candidate, there was lots of concern that that could lead to the underrepresentation of Christians. So to see within his cabinet, within his leadership, his appointees are over 50% Christian is something that I think that will be welcomed. And again, it is significant because if we're looking at this internationally, we do know that the United States does have its House and Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Africa did actually recently approve sanctions or approve the approaching of them towards President Trump to put sanctions on Nigeria because they feel as though Christian communities in the country are being underrepresented and persecuted. So I think that while we're looking at this for what it is, which is a joyous occasion, there's obviously politics nestled in between there. I do think that when I was reading the article, and we will get into this a bit more during the newspaper review, when I first saw the headline about them boasting 62% Christians, I almost thought, well, why is that significant? And then I realized, my goodness gracious, there was legitimate concerns that having a Muslim president and vice president would be something that Christians could feel some type of concern over. So that's clearly not the case now. We will look forward to seeing the wonderful scenes, the historic scenes at the Mass on Sunday. And it's great that Nigeria is going to be obviously in attendance and will be taking a delegation with them.
All right, see, the truth has to be said. Like you were saying, Femi, the dynamics here in the South is we're all intermixed, both Christians and Muslims. Yes. We don't see any lines. Take, for instance, me, my grandfather, we're part of those that built a small mosque just around Ito and the quarters, the local Moshaleshia Adroamigba. Way back in the 30s, 40s, that mosque is still there. I still feel very part of that mosque. I still see what I can do for that mosque from time to time. You know, despite the fact that I'm a Christian now, and I don't see anything across the lines. I mean, we do not see or reason that way. But there were a lot of concerns leading up to the elections about the Muslim ticket, and those concerns were valid. And let's not deceive ourselves. There's still been a lot of persecution of Christians, which we cannot deny in this country. That was even reported all the way to America. And President Tinubu's election has shown that you can have Muslim ticket. I just hope problem will not start when we are supposed to have a Christian ticket. I just hope. And I'm putting it out there because you know me, I will speak the truth at all times. It's easy to talk about all of this now. But kudos to President Tinubu. That man, I will say it over and over again, has no bone of religious bigotry in him. President Tinubu, I can tell you for free. I mean, look at his family. Look at his wife. Christian. Look at him. So the truth has to be said. He has to be able to manage it. But like I said before, I just hope when it comes to have a Christian ticket, we'll not have heads splitting over this. So, but it's a good one on him, going out there to Rome, going out there with the Pope. I mean, the Pope shares a very rich history. The other day, Femi Otedola was posting a message about the Augustinian order. And Femi Otedola has done a lot, you know, for the university build of the Augustinian order here. In fact, he's the Pro-Chancellor of Augustine University. So, and the Pope had visited many times. And he has a very rich history and background. And also, you know, we've been able to claim, because now it's been proven that he has Asian blood, you know, on this side. So he's black, just like us too. So, I mean, that's another... I saw an article that he does have some sort of black heritage
in
fact, I did ask, what's her name, Judita, when the story first came out a couple of weeks ago. Now, I think CNN and other people also reported it. So we're excited about that. And as regards to inflation, I'm really very happy because we want things to be a whole lot better. But is that reflective in the pockets of people? I do not think so. So you can have high inflation numbers coming up, but it's not reflecting the pocket of people. And that's just my concern. The Punch couched it in a different way. The Punch says that over 10 states are over 30% inflation. That's above the 23.7 national average. You know, because the 23.7 is a national average. Mm-hmm. Then you have 10 states over the 30% mark. And the Punch is screaming danger. And that's why we want to look into it. Yeah. So all the economic planners, please do as much as you can to be able to see that prices come back, you know, to the levels that they were before. If
it's coming as well, you see that food prices do skyrocket.
Yeah. So in later time, but hopefully we just pray that it's not the same, because in all fairness to this government, I think the last fasting period, we didn't see an upsurge in prices. Mm-hmm. So in all fairness, they might have, you know, done some things. And when they do well, I say it the way it is. Moving on to NAF. congratulations, congratulations, congratulations to NAF again. They started in 64. Predominantly, one of their first real battles was, leading up to the Civil War. We had a lot of technical support from the Germans. In fact, the Germans became our first technical support in 64. Then the Russians also supported, and that's why we had a lot of MiG jets, in the Russians. But it was in the 70s we really scaled, we bought more MiGs, we bought more Ilyushins in the 70s. In the 80s, we got some, some Spectre Jaguar planes. Then we kept on, increasing the fleet up to the early 2000s when President Olusegun Obasanjo, 2005, talked about us buying the Chengdus. Then we bought the Chengdus. Then we also started buying the JF Thunders of this world. President Tinubu is going to be inaugurating the Augusta Trekker. The Augusta Trekker is now made by Leonardo. It used to be made by Augusta before, but I think Leonardo mopped it up. Leonardo is one of the biggest arm manufacturer out of Italy. Then over the years, we've also, bought some Mies. We've also, bought some GF Thunder. Then we bought the Super Tucano, that was very controversial at that point because we're taking our sovereign wealth fund that we had invested that we had kept over the years when we made money to be able to buy that. So we have some Super Tucanos in our fleet. And there's still some armatures that are coming in soon, in the fleet. So to be able to add to the fleet. So the fleet is gradually increasing, but the official duty of the NAF is to be able to guard and protect Nigeria. We've had some, pitfalls and challenges. Don't forget that the bombing in Iran, the bombing recently of some civilians a couple of months ago, and all of that. But it doesn't dwindle the fact that the NAF are valiant Air Force officials are doing a very good job. And I like to see their parade. I've been seeing their parade since last week while they were going with the helicopters in parts of the island. And I was just, anytime I see it, I just come out and I do the salute. And, it's just exciting that this institution that started out of nothing, because when we were doing all of our peacekeeping job in the 60s, the Congo, when we went to the Congo, we didn't have really any air detachment. They've been able to do a good job over the years to be able to keep this country safe and, maintain territorial integrity of our country. So I salute to NAF at 61.
Are we allowed to salute?
I'm saluting.
Salute, right? Sincerely, it is huge congratulations. I think what I liked about some of the celebrations was the citizen engagement, especially the engagement with the young people. You saw young students from various schools coming to the various bases across the country, being able to learn a little bit about the history. Like Rufai has shared some of the history. Look at them sitting in the helicopter. I was reading some of the comments, and these young people are saying this is their first time seeing a helicopter up close in real life, let alone sitting in the cockpit. There were some locally made drones as well that the young school children got to interact with. So I think it is so important for us to continue to bridge this gap between our Air Force and our forces in general and our people, especially young people. If we foster that relationship, that truly we're one, then some of the pitfalls that we see that are manipulated by some of these proponents of insecurity, they try to appeal to these young ones. So if we are able to be proactive and appeal to the young ones first and get them to buy into the project of Nigeria Project and the Nigerian Air Force and all of our defense forces, I think it'll contribute significantly to
and we need
security.
An Air Force museum. That's one thing that just came to my mind.
Yes.
We need, most of our old MiGs and the likes, we really need an Air Force museum, like a proper Air Force museum. I don't know if there's anyone that works now.
I know President Olusegun Obasanjo has a few planes on display at the Presidential Library, but a museum, dedicated would be absolutely apt, maybe for one of the future anniversaries. Now to the issues of inflation. Of course, when you look at the reportage around it, generally the consensus is that what we're seeing are the results of rebasing. So we've rebased to 2024 as our base year. Of course, a lot of contention around us using 2024 as the base year because 2024 was quite a volatile year. There were several changes that we're still stabilizing. But however, that's what we have now and that's what we're working with. I was reading a report from the House of Reps Committee on National Planning and Economic Development, and their appeal is to the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now, this took place before the inflation numbers were released, but it's still relevant nevertheless, because we're now holding our breath to see whether the central bank will hold rates. I think it's still premature for us to expect the central bank to ease on those interest rates, but the prayer of most small to medium businesses, even manufacturers, large-scale businesses as well, is that hopefully we can start to see some relief in the interest rates. Now, the appeal appeal from the House of Reps was we need to be careful of unintended consequences of these high interest rates. Is that, yes, as much as one is trying to control inflation and ease that inflation, businesses are struggling. The interest rate is choking.
Yeah.
It's absolutely choking. And those consequences will begin to see later. So yes, macroeconomic indices may look good on paper, the interest rate may look lower on paper, but the truth is that our manufacturers, our small to medium enterprises are struggling at the moment at over 27% interest rate. I mean, I remember, was it last year that even Alhaji Aliko Dangote was complaining that this interest rate is tough on business. So some are saying, okay, fine, a lower interest rate, could that be an indication for investors to want to move in? But ultimately, that interest rate is what we are focusing on. Now, since January 2023, the interest rate has been hiked 10 times. We're looking forward to the MPC meeting, which will take place next week. It'll be the 300th MPC meeting, and to see how the central bank is going to navigate and process these new numbers. But like Rufai said, the focus sincerely is on the felt economy. We've looked at the felt economy from the business perspective, where businesses are saying that we're not even feeling the decline in global energy prices because locally we've got so many legacy problems that are still hindering our businesses. Individuals. Now, the inflation, the CPI basket has been adjusted to reduce how much food contributes to the general basket and increase the contribution of services. But when you look at the statistics, Nigerians are spending more on food than on anything else than they've ever spent because of the high food prices. So yes, we're starting to see some results of the import waiver policies for the import of grain and so forth. But the honest truth is that things are still extremely hard. We're still waiting for that much needed reprieve. And yes, macroeconomic indices are fantastic and they're important. However, what people are waiting for is something they can feel in their pockets, some sort of relief.